to welcome to the stage Lucy Needham, Windows Consumer Marketing Executive for Microsoft. So Lucy's been at Microsoft for 3 years, and in her time there, she's really been focusing on the Student Ambassador Programme and focusing on driving a positive and relevant trial experience throughout university campus tours. So please, let's welcome Lucy to the stage to hear about her experiences.
Hi, so as you've all heard several times now, I'm Lucy. I work in the consumer marketing team at Microsoft, and when I started my role 3 years ago, I thought that marketing to students was pretty obvious. I thought about what I did when I was at university, and I just assumed that every student was exactly the same as I was. My motivation for going to uni was pretty simple. Yes, I thought eventually it would help me to get a job, but ultimately, I wanted to go to uni to have some fun. I wanted to make some friends, and I wanted to put off entering the real world for as long as possible, in my case, another 4 years. My life at uni revolved around going on a lot of fancy dress pub crawls, going out drinking, clubbing, and just having a good time. Of course, I had the odd lecture or assignment thrown in there, but if it was raining, I pretty much stayed at home and watched Friends reruns, and I was in Newcastle, so that happened quite a lot. As a student, I was just thinking about the here and now, and I was making the most of my time away from home without having too much to worry about. And I spent far too much of my time doing this sort of thing to my friends' bedrooms. Maybe when I was at university, I was the average student, a little bit lazy and a little bit more focused on my social life than on my academic career. But since I've started my role, I've realized that was completely wrong. I've had a really steep learning curve. In fact, there is no such thing as an average student. There are just groups of people who have similar interests or habits, but no two students are the same. So I'm here today to talk to you about my understanding of the student market, and I'm not going to promise you that it's all correct. It's kind of what I've learned as I've gone along, and how we bring our products to students through our Student Ambassador campaign and our on-campus experiential tour. But first, I thought I'd share some stats with you, which I found pretty surprising. 1/4 of students never go night clubbing, which completely ruins my view of the average student. 76% of students will have a takeaway once a week, with their favourite being fish and chips, which to me is still quite a treat. And finally, the fact that the student market is worth £15 billion. When you hear how much the student market is worth, you begin to understand why barely a week goes by on campuses without a brand being there putting on some sort of event for the students. Students today have an awful lot invested of their time at uni. Mainly the increased fees. There are massive financial implications about going to universities today, but also living costs have increased, as has transport and textbooks, etc. The list kind of goes on and on. If you were a student today and you started in September 2012, you're expected to graduate with double the debt of a student who started the same course as you in September 11. And the amount of debt that you're expected to graduate with if you started your course in September 2012 is roughly £50,000. That is an awful lot of money to come out of university having to pay back. So it's understandable why students today expect a lot more from their time at university, while they are expecting their courses to be much better and their lecturers to put a lot more time in. Their time is precious, and as a brand, trying to talk to them has never been harder. In fact, 40% of students have a part-time job during term time. We know, as Microsoft, and I'm sure lots of the other brands here know, that people generally build their loyalty towards brands whilst they're still studying. And so, of course, we want to try and talk to them whilst they're still studying. But we are also aware that 70% of students are on campus with a laptop. So we're not trying to sell them something. We're trying to change their preference for their next PC purchase and their perception around Windows today. We are also aware that students are tech trendsetters. They want to know about the next trend or the next piece of technology before anyone else. And as has already been said today, these guys have grown up with technology. They know what they're doing far better than the rest of us. We are making a long-term investment in students with our 2 on-campus activities. But to make these successful, we have to be aware of timings. So a student life is pretty similar the whole way through the year. And the worst time for students is exams. And during exams, they only have time for one thing. and that is revision, and they're very stressed. And that is pretty much how I was feeling before I came on the stage today. Whilst during exam time there might be high footfall on campus, you might find that there are queues outside the library before it is even opened. It is the worst possible time to try and talk to a student. They just don't have the time to try and talk to you. In order to be successful with all of your activities with students, you have to take this into account. Our student tour is in its second year, and this year we visited 28 university campuses with quite a high target of 100,000 hands-on 8-minute demos to be completed. We finished our tour in March and actually managed to beat this target by over 9%. When we go on campuses, we have an internal structure that we set up in a high footfall area of the university, such as the student union. In our first year, we also had a big external tent that we took to the campuses, but we found that students are still a little bit lazy and they don't really like to go out of their way to come and talk to you. By being where they are already going, they are much more likely to stop and talk to you. I'm now hopefully going to show you a video, but the Apple gremlins have got in a little bit, so I'm going to have to do it through YouTube, so please bear with me, that hopefully will explain to you a little bit more about our campus tour. This was a video that we used on social media to promote it to the universities that we were going to visit and to give the universities that we weren't going to visit an idea of what was going on. So the video is basically going to tell you that we had 4 8-minute demos that the students could take part in. You can see the stand set up here where we had a video at the top and then a laptop at the bottom and some headphones. So it's a really immersive experience for the students. They'd put the headphones on and they would watch the video and then they would do the activities themselves. What we found was, even though the demos were only meant to last about 8 minutes, I think the record was that we had one guy who sat on the demos for approximately half an hour, and he only completed one. So the students got really, really involved in it, which is fantastic for us to see. The students were also able to really see how the, that's my favourite guy, the one there with the Mohican from the whole tour. So students were really able to see how Windows 8 would work for them, how it would save them time, and hopefully how it would give them a bit more time back so that they were able to go and do the more fun stuff that university was all about for me. With the launch of Windows 8, there was also a whole new range of devices that came out. So we decided to partner with Sony. Sony are a brand who are already really popular with students, and we took one of their high-end devices to create a feeling of aspiration on the tour. So it was something that students were really aiming for. Sony, like many other companies, offer an education discount, and during the first 10 weeks of the tour, they were tracking the education discount redemptions at PC World and John Lewis stores, where the tour had already visited, and saw some amazing results, bearing in mind that this is not a sales push at all. There was a 100% increase in sales on the machine that we had on the tour, and a 40% increase in sales of accessories, including the headphones, which we also had on the tour. Students, compared to most of the rest of the population, do have a significant disposable income and will spend a proportional higher amount on non-essential items, which could go some way to explaining this big increase in the sales of headphones for Sony. Whilst we were on the tour, we also took the opportunity to talk about other student-relevant products and services that we have to offer. So we talked about our graduate schemes or our year-long undergraduate internships for students. And we also took the opportunity to talk about our Xbox Smart Glass story. 75% of students say that they watch TV or films on their laptop, as that being their primary device for viewing. So Xbox Smart Glass is a free application that you can download, and it intelligently turns your PC or your mobile phone into a second screen that interacts with your Xbox Live. So you could be browsing the web on your TV, or you could be, as a student, on the train going home, watching a film, and then when you get home, you can put it up onto your big TV screen when you're back at mum and dad's. So for students who are a permanently connected audience, this was a great story for us to be able to tell. But again, it was very relevant to students. We were only ever telling the students things that would make a difference to them, that they would be interested in. We didn't try to cram in all of the other products and services that we have to offer. Students have people trying to talk to them all the time, whether it's their lecturers, their friends, their family, or brands or shop assistants. And as a brand, trying to shout louder than everyone else doesn't always work. You have to make sure that you are being relevant and that you are talking to them about something that students are actually interested in, and you're talking to them in a way that makes them want to listen to you. We find that the peer-to-peer communication that we have achieved with our student ambassadors is a great way of doing this. So we are in the third year of our Student Ambassador Programme. We've grown from 30 in our first year to 150 now, and we cover 60% of the UK student population. All of our ambassadors are advocates for Windows and for Microsoft. I'm sure you'll all agree that if your friends or your family tell you about a new product or service, you're far more likely to go and find out about it and buy it than you would if a TV ad was to tell you. And the same is true for students, if not even more so. In fact, 77% of them say that that's why they will try a new product or services. We arm our ambassadors with a Windows 8 machine and with a Windows phone, and then we train them on them. But after that, we want the ambassadors to have really natural conversations with everyone that they're talking to. So we don't tell them what they have to talk about. They're talking about the features that they find are the most important. So we have 3 parts to our Student Ambassador Programme. We have the demos, we have local partnerships, and we also have our experiential. So our demos, as I've already said, they have to be 8 minutes long. They have to be hands-on. And whilst we will provide guidance for the ambassadors, we let them talk about whatever they want. Our local partnerships is a chance for the ambassadors to suggest to us local marketing opportunities that are relevant to their university. This can be through societies such as the football or the cheerleading or the drama society, or it can be events. We're providing the ambassadors with real-life experiences that they can talk about in their interviews. They're developing really key work competencies because they manage these local partnerships end to end, apart from us approving them. Hopefully, this is going to give them a head start when they go out into the graduate job market, because as we all know, it's not the best at the moment. And it's not just working for the ambassadors, it's also a really positive experience for the universities. Both staff and students are really impressed that we're taking the time to do these smaller activities. And it's a great way for us to build upon our brand credibility. 55% of students at universities are members of a society, and so using a society is a great way for us to shift preference as they hit 2 of the students' sweet spots, their social life and employability. We also use the ambassadors to give us a presence at Freshers' Fairs. Now, we're all aware that Freshers' Fairs are basically an opportunity to grab as many wooden spoons or bags of sweets as you can, and then you run away and you don't really remember anything about it. So we make sure that our ambassadors have fun at these Freshers' Fairs. We make sure that it's a positive start for both our ambassadors and for the students who interact with them. That way, they're much more likely to talk to our students moving forward. Measurement. So we measure both of our student activities in exactly the same way. We have a standard trial card which has standard questions. By using the standard trial card, on the student tour, we make it part of the prize mechanism. So if you don't complete the trial card, you don't get entered into the prize giveaway. For the ambassadors, we give them goodies to hand out to the students, and we generally try to brand these goodies so that we have a bit of longevity. And surprisingly, students haven't completely entered the digital age yet, and pens are by far the most favourite thing that we can give out to them. So by using the same standard trial card and the same questions across both of the activities, we are able to measure which has the better cost per trial for us and which one will shift perception more, because these don't always go hand in hand. And it also means that we are able to measure our return on investment. We know how many students we have hit during the year, and we're also able to measure the shifts in preference. Whilst doing my role, I've learned an awful lot. Mainly, I've learned that I'm really glad I went to university when I did, and that I'm not having to face what students are facing today. But to summarise, I believe that the key to any campaign has to be a really core understanding of the audience that you're talking to. Campus tours and ambassador campaigns can be highly effective, but you need to make sure that what you're talking about is relevant, that you're saying it at the right time, in the right way, to the right people, and that most importantly, it is interesting. We're all aware of the importance of the student market, but not everyone is. Certainly not everyone at Microsoft is. So by measuring our campaigns and our activities, we're able to prove to them how successful we have been. So thanks very much for listening to me today. If you have any questions and you're not brave enough to ask them now, feel free to send me an email.
Thank you. Okay. So, who is brave enough to ask Lucy a question? Anybody have one? Yeah, there's a couple.
What's the rest of it? The risk.
So the question was, what's the risk of the ambassador program?
That it's very expensive. So you're having to motivate these ambassadors. In our case, we're having to supply them with kit. So it costs an awful lot of money, and you have to make sure that the ambassadors are going to perform for you month on month, otherwise you get a terrible ROI.
Great. Can we grab the question on the left as well, please?
Hi, yeah, Jamie Armstrong from Target Jobs. Just picking up on a similar point, actually, with regards to the brand ambassadors, we run our own program as well. How do you pay them? And also, when you said you measured them with the cards, can you just explain in a bit more detail exactly how you do establish what the return on investment is from those cards? Do they have targets they have to hit, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, so our student ambassadors aren't actually paid. They do it because they are advocates of the brand. And we find, having done lots of research into this, actually students in the UK prefer being taught to someone who are doing it because they love the brand, not because they're being paid to do it. And we're actually the only country in the world for Microsoft that don't pay our ambassadors. Instead, they get given brand new laptops, they get given phones, and there are monthly incentives for them. They do have targets, but we are very, very aware that our campaign has to come second to their academic studies. So we say to them, if you have got a really busy month coming up, then let us know and we'll work around it. We're really on their side. We don't want them to feel like they've entered into something that's going to mean that they fail their degree. And the trial cards, once people have done an 8-minute hands-on demo on the machine, then the ambassadors will say to them, would you mind filling this card out? It's really quick. It will take about 2 minutes. There's about 10 questions on the trial card that measures before and after. And then people get given a pen or a water bottle or a coffee cup or whatever as a thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. That was great.